For those who seek adventure, this is the Buffalo Roamer Podcast, sharing the people, places, and moments that make a life on the loose worth living.
The thing that's going to stick out to you most is when they open up that plane door. The cold is something like you've never felt.
The jungle's so thick, even if you had a machete, you couldn't get through it.
There's a huge blonde grizzly bear. And when it saw us, this thing put its head down, stomped on the ground, and hissed like an alligator.
I just crossed this brutal stretch of desert, and I was really suffering.
I'm your host, Will Collins. I'm an adventurer, outdoorsman, and roamer of wild places. I've backpacked the Brooks Range, rafted the Grand Canyon, and have canoed from source to sea, both the Mississippi and Yukon rivers. I live for adventure, travel, fresh air, and diving into the unknown. And now, I hope to share my passion with you on the Buffalo Roamer Podcast. All right, here we go, episode 55 of Buffalo Roamer Outdoors. Thanks for tuning in to another edition. Please make sure you're subscribed to the podcast if you're enjoying the show. Also, we got a new shop up at buffaloroamer.com. We got all kinds of awesome merch for sale. You can find it at buffaloroamer.com and then click the shop tab. We got hats, sweatshirts, t-shirts, sweatpants, coffee mugs, water bottles, you name it. We got some cool stuff for sale at buffaloroamer.com on that shop tab. Truckers hats, what are the other ones called? Bucket hat, snapback, all kinds of different hats. I got a tie-dye t-shirt. I got awesome sweatshirts, all with the sweet Buffalo Roamer logo, so check it out. Okay. On today's show, Chris Leininger is on the podcast today. Chris is an adventurer, a traveler, an outdoorsman, and he owns and operates the company Epic Backpacker Tours. So we had a good time chatting on episode 55 with Chris Leininger on Buffalo Roamer Outdoors. We're talking to you from Istanbul today. I'm here outside of Chicago, Illinois, Central Time. It's bright and early, and it's an 8-hour time difference, so it was a little tricky to connect. But I'm glad we were able to. How are things on your end this morning, or I guess this afternoon for you?
Yeah, things are good. Sunny day in Istanbul. I got my afternoon coffee rolling, so we just missed the call to prayer that's happening outside of my apartment window. So if we hear that's what's going on there. Awesome.
So tell me a little bit about your story and kind of how you got started. I got connected to you through a mutual friend, your cousin, my buddy Trace Barbatelli. And it looks like you're doing all kinds of awesome stuff, leading backpacking tours, your company Epic Backpacking Tours in Pakistan and other destinations. Give me just a little rundown about what you do and who you are.
Yeah, okay. So we started Epic Backpacker Tours in 2017 and weren't really sure where it would go, to be honest. I started it with a friend of mine who was a big world traveler. And yeah, we both kind of just saw the big potential in Pakistan. And we started off with like a pretty vanilla tour there. Our first group, I think we had like 10 people. And it's kind of grown from there and become now we offer like the trips that we offer kind of the type of trips that I would be doing personally anyway, but this gives me a chance to, turn it into a business and also to support the local communities we work with. And here we are in 2022, and I just wrapped up kind of our busiest season. We ran 5 expeditions this summer, 3 of which for 21 days each. And yeah, kind of like anything, it just started small, and then our team has grown a little bit. We survived COVID, which was a big thing because in 2020 not much was happening, obviously. And now we're trying to blow as many people's minds with the beauty of the Karakoram as possible. That's kind of the goal at the moment.
I love it, man. That's awesome. So how did this all come to be for you? Like, what were the steps that led to launching this in 2017? I imagine you're an American, right?
I am American, yeah. It's a kind of a strange story, but I guess it's a combination of like right place and right time. being surrounded with people who were pretty motivated and saw potential in myself and saw potential in the kind of the landscape for tourism in Pakistan, which for Western people after 9/11 really dropped off. And yeah, to be honest, at the time I was living in France. I was recently married and I didn't have any job, didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And I started working as a writer and photographer for this travel blog website. And kind of that was the bridge that got me into kind of the travel industry and adventure tourism industry. And yeah, the person who I used to work for, it was with him that I started running the first tour. He coming from like the travel blogger space, so it was kind of like a merger of working as a travel blogger and combining that with adventure tours.
Awesome. And what was your experience traveling through Pakistan or being in Pakistan before launching the tours?
Yeah, very little, to be honest. I was kind of just thrown in the deep end. I had done a little bit, but like really, when I say a little bit, not much. But I'd done quite a bit of stuff in Nepal and Patagonia, the Appalachian Trail in the U.S. I'd been doing these sort of active adventures, I guess you could say, like solo or with close friends for many years leading up to this point. But I didn't have any previous guide or leadership or business, crucially, experience. And so I guess, yeah, since 2017, and since I acquired ownership of the whole business, it's been really a learning process in terms of guide skills, leadership skills, risk management, and business skills. Because yeah, before I was just a guy who hadn't spent much time in Pakistan, and yeah, now I've been to Pakistan 15 times and have spent quite a lot of exploring on my own as well. But yeah, when we started, I was pretty green.
Talk to me about Pakistan and what is the draw for Pakistan and for these trips and types of tours and just for people exploring Pakistan in general.
Yeah, Pakistan is a tricky, complex place. And it's kind of a place that I have, I would say, a love-hate relationship with at this point. Like I love it, but I also it's a very challenging place to work, and maybe that's why there's not more people like me doing stuff there. Just the logistics there really make it worth it for people to like want to go with a tour operator, because yeah, the road systems are all very poor. And maybe it's been in the world news, all this flooding that was happening that really damaged a lot of the infrastructure as well. And sorry, can you repeat the second half of that question?
Yeah, you bet. I don't even know if I remember my own second half of the question, so no no worries. I guess just like what's the draw for the tour or for backpacking or traveling in Pakistan?
Yeah, gotcha. Sorry, I went off on a side tangent.
That's okay.
Well,
I don't even remember my own thoughts or questions half the time.
yeah, all good. Yeah, so I mean, Pakistan has 5 of the world's 8,000-meter peaks, and there is a area like around like kind of where K2 is and some of these other big peaks that is just totally magical and unlike any other place I've ever gone. Not many places in the world where you can do this sort of trek in a very remote area and see like 4 of the world's biggest mountains just like right there, like boom, 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 I guess the fact that Pakistan is so difficult to travel in, and the fact that it's pretty underdeveloped in terms of tourism infrastructure, is a big draw for me, because it feels a bit like a final frontier of sorts. Like I love Nepal because it's so easy to travel there, and Pakistan is the opposite of Nepal when it comes to pretty much everything related to tourism. And I think the challenges to overcome in Pakistan are such that it's very rewarding to work there, to bring groups there, and it's one of the few places left in the world where there's the big mountains and it's like super wild and raw in a huge percentage of it. You just Yeah, I haven't, maybe I've seen glimpses of that in Patagonia, but at the same time, we're not talking about the big, we're not talking about 8,000 meter peaks, like the truly big mountains that you have in Nepal and Pakistan and China and stuff. Um, yeah, there's just something magical about it because of that and the remoteness and kind of the chaos that is traveling in Pakistan. It all kind of just ties it together to, form these magical adventure experiences for me and for the people we bring there.
Do you have any, is there anything like a story from a trip that comes to mind that kind of like encompasses either your trips or Pakistan, like dealing with people and the trip, or I guess it's a broad question, but do you kind of get what I'm getting at?
Yeah, well, I can give you a story of just like a day in the life of what happened. Just like this was like 10 days ago, actually. We did this glacial traverse, I guess. It was 130 kilometers along the Biafo Glacier and then up and over this pass. And then downside was the Hispar Glacier. So you're kind of finishing in these two valleys. We had a really awesome group of people on that trip. And day 14 was the day we were hiking out. And we also had an army of porters with us. We had 40 porters, if you can believe that. And anyway, when we were hiking out, it's the last day of the trip. We're like super pumped on this hotel we will be going to later in the day. Didn't really eat lunch. Anyway, we get to the village and I was one of the last to arrive because I was in the back with some of the slower hikers. And yeah, we arrived at the village. The news is the road out is gone. We're like,
Jeez.
the road is gone. Sweet. Well, we just walked 14 days and they're like, yeah, there's no way. We're like, all right, well, we'll take these 3 Jeeps and 2 tractors with trailers on them as far as we can go, and then we'll see. Long story short, we load up, we drive maybe 20 minutes. Sure enough, there's a massive landslide, and everybody gets out and starts like moving these washing machine sized boulders off of the road. Like, keep in mind, we have like 40 or 50 people, right? And then the guys, they start building the road wider on the left. And you imagine that in America, like there's a road gone, what to do? We're going to wait for the highway, whatever engineering people to come and build something. These guys just started stacking rocks and piling dirt and widening the road like 4 or 5 feet. And it took like an hour and maybe 30 of them to do it. Yeah, that happened, and then we drove another 10 minutes. Another massive landslide. Road is gone. We cannot continue. So these local guys are there with their motorcycles. They start ferrying us out one by one on motorcycles, maybe 30, 40 minutes on this like suicidal road where it's basically gone and there's drop offs to the river on either side. And the porter team with all of our gear just hiked it 3-4 hours extra they had to do. And yeah, we arrived like so many hours later than we were supposed to, but yeah, we still made it to the hotel that night and the trip was over. And that was like one of the craziest days that any of our clients ever had. And because keep in mind, we did about 20 miles on foot before this road building adventure. And yeah, but that's just like kind of a classic day in the life thing working there. Like, it's not that uncommon.
Huh, that's wild. That's very neat. How about the people of Pakistan, the locals? How do they treat you and your clients and just as a general to foreigners and outsiders?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever met such welcoming people, to be honest. And maybe that is a product of them not interacting with a ton of tourists, not seeing you as like just a walking ATM machine. But I've never had that experience there where like in India or other places or South America, even, people really just try to scam you at every corner. They're just trying to like take your money. They just see you as a foreigner. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love Pakistan, is because the people are just so genuine. Even if they personally don't have that much themselves, they will always invite you for a tea or for lunch, or will help you in some way if they can. And it's quite interesting because Pakistan has a reputation of maybe being a country that harbors terrorists, or it's associated with Taliban or Al Qaeda or whatever. And we do get questions about that, about terrorism activities, and even like border protection in the U.S. questions me about that when I come back to the U.S. But like, to be honest, I have always felt and been treated in a way that like made me feel safer than I have in like New York City or Paris or Medellin, Colombia, or in Guatemala. Like, those are all places where I've felt unsafe and had like robbery. Like, I've been robbed in a handful of those places, like violently. And in Pakistan, never. Never any issues. The people are great. Yeah, what else to say? They're just a great people, and they make traveling there a pleasure.
Awesome. How about for you, you personally, outside of the epic backpacking tours? Sounds like you're a pretty well-traveled guy. Do you have any like trips that come to the forefront of your mind, like that was a really formative or wild or amazing trip, backpacking, traveling, any of that type of stuff?
Um, there's a few, I'd say. Probably the first time I traveled alone, I did 8 months in South America and did a bunch of hiking in Patagonia. I was like 21 years old at the time, and whole that whole like 8 month block was quite formative for me, I would say. And just, yeah, like learning about the world, and then, yeah, learning how much I love the outdoors as well. I grew up near Los Angeles, like skateboarding and not in nature at all. So it took me when I was an adult to really discover my love of the outdoors and the mountains and everything. But yeah, I would say that trip to Patagonia in 2011, and probably my first trip to Pakistan also, when I saw the big mountains for the first time there. Yeah.
What was that trip down to Patagonia like? You just hopped in a car and or flew down there and kind of hitched around, or what was the gist of that trip?
Yeah, it was a lot of different things and scenarios, but the gist is I finished working this seasonal job and bought a one-way ticket that got me down to Buenos Aires. I was meant to meet a friend there and travel around for like a few months with him, and then at the last whatever, he like couldn't make it, or he came down for a few days and then he left. And I was just like, right on. Well, I'm here now. I have all this time. And yeah, I wasn't doing that much hitchhiking. I did a little bit once I got into southern Patagonia. Um, but mostly I was bussing around, and yeah, I would stay at these hostels and figure out hikes to do. Did that. And then, yeah, but then really moved locations, went to Ecuador, was volunteering, found myself in Peru around like Machu Picchu area. And it was kind of this like classic, you could say, 8 months of just like real adventuring and experiencing these different cultures for somebody who hadn't really before, with quite a lot of adventure stuff mixed in, like hiking and camping. And I had a huge backpack full of gear with me that I was bringing everywhere. So yeah.
What do you remember any any mountains or any specific stories from that trip that still stick with you? Any people or interesting people met along the way, or interesting hikes or something along those lines?
Well, I was doing it's kind of a famous circuit in the Torres del Paine National Park in Chile, the W circuit. And there was mean to call them out, but there was an Israeli guy who started a fire and caught like half of the park on fire
Jeez.
while I was there. And it was because he was using like a butane stove somewhere he shouldn't have been, or got knocked over, or whatever the story was. But he like got arrested, and it was this whole thing. And yeah, they had to close half the park for a long time, and because it was just torched, which was a shame. And but yeah, that was memorable because I was like pretty impressed that one individual could like fuck up so badly, I guess. And but yeah, then I didn't get to complete the circuit because of that. So I'll have to go back and tackle it again.
There you go. There you go. How about some of the other areas for your epic backpacking? I see that you have Iran and Tajikistan listed, as well as a couple other places.
Yeah.
Give me a breakdown about those places and how do those compare and differ from Pakistan?
Right. Well, let's start with Iran. Iran is another one of those places that doesn't have the best reputation in the world, and that's kind of like, I guess that's kind of like something we look for when we're picking a new destination, is like, that's just part of our brand, I guess, and also my personal curiosity. But so many Americans don't even know they can go to Iran. It's also very difficult for Iranians to come to the US. But yeah, Iran, another one of those places with amazing people, amazing food, and all sorts of fun, like outdoor adventure stuff also, that's like completely untapped by most of the Western world. We ran a trip there in May. I was there like kind of as a co-leader and photographer for that one. And yeah, going back there, it blows me away, that country. We got to do this pretty cool 4-day hike in this area full of where this ethnic nomadic tribe lives. They live seasonally there. We went to their place where they stay in the summertime. They have like a summer camp and a winter camp, and pretty cool in 2022 to see like real nomads out doing their thing as them and their ancestors have been doing for many years, and to just be able to like trek through that area. And also the fact that it's Iran is also mind-blowing to me, that our government, the US government, a lot of sanctions, a lot of painting Iran in a negative light. And to be fair, Iran's government kind of sucks, but the average person doesn't really care if you're American or not, and they're just really happy to see people traveling there. And I guess like, yeah, with Epic, having these sort of reactions like be the normal kind of vibe of what we do, in terms of like, yeah, going to these kind of weird countries, and the expectations that people have maybe before going to a place like Iran. They don't know if they're going to get kidnapped. They don't know if it's just terrorists or what's going on or what's going to happen. And then they go there and like it's 180-degree difference. Like, yeah, the natural beauty, the people, the food, the safety. And that's kind of the essence of what we do, I guess, is going to these obscure countries and changing the stereotypes that are the preconceived notions in people's mind about what traveling to these sort of places can be. So yeah, that's kind of Iran for me.
Awesome. How about Tajikistan?
Yeah, Tajikistan is a new area for us. We launched a few new trips this year. The Fan Mountains are gorgeous. That trip, it's similar, I guess you can say. Sure. That it's also very remote. That trip is more for people who are like quite experienced in terms of being self-sufficient. We don't have any porter staff or anything on that one as we do in Pakistan. But yeah, my other real favorite one is Kyrgyzstan. Went with a colleague of mine. We developed that trip in 2019, and spent quite a lot of time exploring all over the show in Kyrgyzstan, and even in the in the southern region, this place called the Batkin, which I'm not sure if have you heard the story of Tommy Caldwell in Kyrgyzstan? What happened to him there?
I don't think I have. Hit me.
Yeah, just a quick summary. He was on a climbing trip there when he was really young, and there was like rebel groups in the areas, and he got taken hostage for a few days. We wanted to go there and see what that was about. This is, bear in mind, 15 years ago that happened to him. So yeah, we went down there to see if we could develop a tour there, and then it kind of turned out actually to be like a bit too wild and it was going to be too intense to try to bring a group there. We didn't get taken hostage or anything. It was really beautiful. They call it like the Patagonia of Central Asia, the southern Kyrgyzstan region. Crazy, like 1,000-foot granite walls everywhere and rivers, and yeah, really cool. But we started doing trips in the north of Kyrgyzstan, which is also full of nomad culture and kind of this like remnants of the Soviet Union history, sort of darkness looming over a few things there as well, which makes it pretty fascinating, just so different from anything in the West. And yeah.
Awesome.
There you go.
So how about, and I know I'm already going to say this wrong, but going back to Pakistan, as an outdoorsman and as someone who follows mountaineering and the 18 or 8,000 meter peaks, you always hear of the help me here, the Karakoram, the Karakoram. How do I say that, Chris?
Yeah, Karakoram.
Karakoram. So you always hear of the Karakoram. What exactly is it? Is it a valley, a whole range, a specific set? And what's so spectacular about the Karakoram?
Sure. Well, so the three tallest mountain ranges on Earth are the Himalaya, the Karakoram, and the Hindu Kush range. And in Pakistan, those three mountain ranges actually come together. And the Karakoram it's a big range, and it's kind of defined by these super jagged, super rocky, quite dry ranges, whereas in Nepal, where a majority of like the large Himalayan range lies, those are typically a bit greener. They still have, Everest is there in Nepal, and Makalu, Lhotse, a lot of, I think, 8,000 meter peaks in Nepal. But Nanga Parbat, it's a big mountain in Pakistan. It's the ninth highest mountain in the world. It acts as this sort of barrier between the Himalaya and the Karakoram, and it's kind of described as the western anchor of the Himalaya. And on the west side of Nanga Parbat, it kind of stops all of these weather systems. That's why the Karakoram is so dry. Whereas if you were at the same altitude, say 10,000 feet in Nepal, it's like lush jungle. And when you're at 10,000 feet in Pakistan, it's just like dry, rocky desert. Very few trees. And yeah, the monsoonal climate just isn't the same in the Karakoram. But yeah, and then the Hindu Kush, it runs between Pakistan and Afghanistan all the way, I believe, to India. There's this kind of triangle of ranges. There's no 8,000 meter peaks in the Hindu Kush, but there are quite a few 7,000 meter peaks, and also just extremely wild. I've been in there a little bit. There's a lot to see and do in there, but that's kind of like the main differences. And what the hell the Karakoram is, that's what it is. It's the range.
And how about like is there much wildlife to see, or is it arid and kind of empty, I guess, or how about things in that regard?
Yeah, I would say it's more on the empty and arid side, though there are big mammals around. You just don't see them much. There's snow leopards, like Himalayan snow leopard. There's Marco Polo sheep and blue sheep, which are these kind of wild sheep-like things that have these epic horns. There's a Himalayan ibex. There's eagles, wolves, Himalayan brown bears. You're just not seeing them that much. Like I've seen ibex, I don't know, 5, 6 times, but never a snow leopard, never a bear, never any of the like real impressive creatures. So you feel like you'll see animal tracks out there occasionally. You'll see birds occasionally. You'll see like marmot around sometimes, but yeah, it's. I think it's a once in a lifetime thing to see a snow leopard, or it's very difficult. So,
what are people? What are people most excited about after completing one of these trips?
I think they're most excited about taking it up a notch after they realize they can do something as challenging as doing 14 days like at high altitude. They want to then climb a 20,000 foot peak or a 24,000 foot peak. That's kind of been the people that really enjoyed, and you can just see they're just amped at their, they just got they got the mountain stoke, and they want to do something more, to push themselves more. I would say that was the takeaway from this season. Like the people that were really stoked, they're like, okay, when's the next one? Like they want to go a bit higher, something a bit harder. Because I think Pakistan, for many people, it's like their first experience at like high altitude, like going above 17, 18, 19,000 feet, which is like that's the trekking altitude at some of our treks. That's like it's pretty high. And then they want to do something more. So yeah, I think we're trying to do something in Nepal next year as kind of that second stepping stone for people who want to take the physical challenge a bit further as the next step after doing one of our trips.
Sure. And how does that high altitude stuff play into like trip considerations? I haven't really messed around at much higher than really, 14,000 feet, I guess, is the highest I've ever been on land.
Okay.
How does all of that play into things?
It's tricky because you don't really know how people are going to react, right, when they get at altitude. It doesn't really matter if you're super fit, if you're unfit or not. It's just you have to just go to altitude and see how you go. That's been my experience, and in terms of the science of it, that's what I understand also is there's no, with perhaps the exception of like a genetic predisposition, like if you're from Tibet or something, then you might do better at altitude just naturally, or from like the mountains of Peru as an example. But the average person from Colorado or whatever, or maybe Colorado is not even a good example because they're at high altitude ish there. But yeah, I mean, we try to like really prepare people with information, in terms of just getting themselves as feeling as well as they can and letting them know how our kind of acclimatization steps are. And then we just, when we're on the trek itself or on the trip, we just take it slow, and we never go up too high. But yeah, it's something like as a trip leader I have to deal with all the time. There's always an issue related to altitude sickness on every trip, and usually it manifests in like digestion of people. Like they have to go to the toilet all the time, they're having headaches, they can't sleep. And yeah, it's not easy to manage. And every day that we're at like 95 to 100% like collective group health battery, like I'm stoked. But that's rare, not common that we're all feeling good. And yeah, it's just a matter of you know what to do. It's like you have 12 different bodies that you're trying to manage, and you put them in a position for success as best as you can, like knowing the route and knowing the different altitudes and the different possibilities for like acclimatization camps and rotations and rest days. But kind of people are just in one way just thrown into the fire and have to deal with it. Yeah.
I love it. Um, what how big are these groups, and I mean, how does it normally work? So you have porters, and you go and you're backpacking every day and switching camps every day.
It depends on the trip. We have several different itineraries in Pakistan, but like our main, I guess you could say like our hardcore multi-day expedition style stuff is like to K2 base camp, which is the like Pakistan equivalent of Everest base camp, going to the second highest mountain in the world. But again, the main difference between Nepal and Pakistan, like in Nepal, you don't need a huge porter army to go to Everest Base Camp because there are tea houses, which are like little hotels along the way. The whole way, you can stop pretty much anywhere every like hour or two. There's a little hotel or somewhere for you to stay. Pakistan, day one, as soon as you leave the jeep, you are out for 14 days. There's nothing. So we're like a moving city, essentially like a moving base camp. Like the last trip, like I mentioned, we had 40 porters, we had 15 mules. So we're carrying mess tent, kitchen tent, all the whole like kitchen staff supplies, generator, all the members' luggage, tents, food for 2 weeks for that many people. Um, and yeah, it's challenging because we're like essentially breaking down and setting up every day at different camps. We might have like out of those 14 days, we might have between 1 and 3 rest days, depending on weather. Like this last time, again, we got kind of snowed in for 3 days. We couldn't move. And yeah, other than that, though, maybe we have like one rest day just to enjoy the views or something at a particularly sick campsite, like at K2 Base Camp, like having a day at K2 when it's height of mountaineering season and like the whole camp is filled with world-class mountaineers, like that's a pretty sick experience for people. So we usually do a day there or something. But yeah, it's pretty hectic, man. Moving that much like infrastructure really is what you can call it. Like it's a little city we set up every day.
Sounds like a lot of
Managing
moving
that
parts.
with animals involved, and yeah, human porters also. That's why we do call it an expedition, because it's not just a simple tea house trek that you would do in Nepal.
What is your favorite part of these trips?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I think the little moments really, and when things work out. I love that moment at the beginning of the day. It's like usually about 5 a.m. I got the 2 French presses rolling. Nobody's awake yet. Like first light is just happening. I'm just sitting there having a minute before my brain really starts to need to manage everything for the day. I'm just having my coffee and like sitting there and holding space in the mountains. Like I love that feeling. Um, I also love, obviously, like anybody, I love hitting targets. And in Pakistan, it's never sure. Actually, like the different routes we take are never confirmed because they go over these high altitude passes. There's ropes involved, and it's not ever sure if we can cross or not, because of weather and also group fitness. So when we do, and it's not every time, like when we do get to like send the most difficult or the highest point on the itinerary and it like happens and everyone's safe, like that's super rewarding for me. Um, and yeah, an example of that this summer, 28 other teams tried crossing that glacier traverse I was describing before. It's 2 glaciers and a mountain pass. So 28 teams tried to cross it. A guy had passed away also just before us. He passed from altitude sickness on the trail. He was there, still there. The fact that we were able to, like be the first team of the year and out of 28 to do it, like that was probably and we did it in a whiteout blizzard as well. Like
Wow.
to do it, to do that this summer was really satisfying. And it wasn't even like being on top or couldn't see anything. It was like being inside of a ping pong ball on the top of the pass. But yeah, just the fact that like the collective energy of the group and mindset did it was super satisfying. So it goes from like the small moments of the coffee in the morning to just ticking off the objectives we set out to do, and being like, of all the groups out there doing stuff, like one of the few to do it this year was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Um, so you said somebody had passed before you went, and they were still there.
Yeah,
Oof.
yeah, there was a very small group um, from France actually on who were trying to do the same route as us, and an older gentleman had had HAPE, I guess, like high altitude pulmonary edema, and he didn't get down in time, and he just passed.
Oof. Tragic.
Yeah.
Not to draw too much on the tragic situations, but what happens in a situation like that in somewhere as rural and remote as that I assume would be?
Yeah, well, there are definitely a few things to do that could prevent that situation, and I'll be honest, and I'll say it on record, is that situation that happened with that guy out there, the French gentleman, did not need to happen, and it only happened because the operator he was trekking with didn't have a satellite phone and didn't have any way to be able to call help, because the days leading up to that, like the weather was clear enough to get a helicopter in there, and that would have saved his life. Um, so yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it's a hard lesson for, I guess you could say, budget operators or kind of these cowboy operators who are going out there without proper safety gear. But yeah, you have a satellite phone and you have a Garmin InReach, like satellite messenger, and you can pretty much sort yourself out if you need a bad if you're in a bad place. You can. I've called in heli rescues for my clients out there, pretty much all through texting on a Garmin InReach and on calls on a satellite, like a Thuraya satellite phone. But you don't have those, and you are days away from help. And that's what happened this summer. It was like, yeah, there's a group out there, no communication tools, and yeah, unfortunately, one of their members died because of it. So
Oof. Tragic.
it's always a good reminder for me as a guide and operator to know that like there's a reason why we carry what we carry, and there's kind of just no exceptions to that rule. It's like you just must have X, Y, and Z piece of gear, otherwise you ain't going out.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what are you looking forward to coming up next? Is your I don't know how the seasons go over there. Are you guys winding down? Or are you just ramping up? What's up next for Chris and Epic Backpacking Tours?
Yeah, what's next? So I'm personally pretty much done for this year. We have another Iran tour starting in a week and another Pakistan tour in October. But I am not guiding those, so like my guiding season is done, which I'm pretty happy about. It was some long months out there leading these pretty intense trips. We have a new trip. The first time we will run it, and very different also in Madeira Island, Portugal, in November. I'm excited for that one. It's just 1 week, but yeah, any of your listeners want to join that one? That's happening in November, and it's close to the States. So
Awesome. And
and then
what's the
yeah,
rundown with that trip?
that trip it's a bit more comfortable than Pakistan, I will say. But yeah, it's basically just exploring this island way out in the middle of the Atlantic. Um, Canyoneering on that one, some cool hiking, a lot of good food, a lot of good drinks. Uh, yeah, it's in terms of like remoteness and crazy difficulty, it's probably our most comfortable trip because you're staying in a hotel every night, and yeah, it's a different sort of a thing we're doing there. Um, but yeah, I don't know if you've seen photos of Madeira or
I
heard of
haven't.
it, but
No. No, I don't
it
think I
looks
know anything about it.
yeah, it looks kind of like Hawaii, but it's Europe, and crazy waterfalls, like crazy mountains, and European culture, and all rolled into one. So it's pretty exciting.
Awesome. Well, hey, Chris, if people want to find out more about the trips or about you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, you can go over to our website, epicbackpackertours.com, or if you want more information about just traveling in Pakistan in general, my blog, offtheatlas.com. Oh yeah, our socials of the same name, Instagram is good. And yeah, hope we catch some of you in the Karakoram at some point. You as well. Most welcome anytime, Will.
Absolutely, man. I would love to. It's definitely high on the list, especially after hearing so much kind of lore about the area and topped off from you too. It's definitely high on the list, man. So that would be a blast. Chris, I appreciate you taking the time and chatting. Any final thoughts or anything else?
Oh no, just have a good Sunday. Thanks for taking time on the Sunday morning to chat, and it's great speaking with you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. You bet. All right, there you have it, episode 55 with Chris Leininger of Epic Backpacker Tours. You can find him at epicbackpackertours.com or the same tag there on Instagram, Epic Backpacker Tours. Go check out the Buffalo Roamer shop. We got all kinds of awesome merch for sale with the sweet Buffalo Roamer logo. Other than that, go get yourself some fresh air. Go enjoy the outdoors. Subscribe to the podcast. That's it. Enjoy the outdoors. Talk to you next time. See ya.